So, so I've got two. So one is in the next 15 years, college will become irrelevant.
In the next 15 years, college will become irrelevant. So right
With
now,
the exception of one particular area, which will be very highly specialized technical fields where it will be basically more sort of devolved towards the sort of grad school. You will show enough proficiency that you then just go and apprentice under someone.
Okay.
But the idea that you actually spend money to go to an organized four-year school, that will go away.
okay, so you're saying by the year, so it's 2011 now, by the year 2026, you think that...
I don't think my kids will go to college the way anybody else does.
You think that our typical model of college will have dissolved. So what will they do instead?
They will still study, right? And they will still gain that knowledge and those skills.
In
They
what
just
context?
they'll just do it online.
It'll be completely independent.
Completely independent.
Instructors will become irrelevant at that point.
It may be more that the organizations, right? Like that the idea that you were going to go to Harvard or to Princeton or to Michigan State, that those facilities will start to break apart in terms of learning. And what's interesting is what I'm now seeing is that those are becoming more incubators for doing things, as opposed to going and learning. So,
Right.
it'll almost be like, have you heard of those like work bars? Right. Well, these are like,
I don't think so.
yeah, work bars are these places like it's almost like an internet cafe, except it's more geared towards work. It's like internet cafe meets Kinko's with a sort of condominium style pricing model.
Okay.
And so that may be what actually becomes college. So you send your kid you pay the college because they'll have certain types of facilities, but you're not paying for any more of their branding, any more of their particular pedagogy, or any of their content. Like the content of schooling will just
Well,
dissolve.
now, what about the notion of certification? And that's a big,
Right, so there'll be
both-
different certifications, right?
But
Like,
who will do the certifying?
those will be professional societies most likely, or particularly it'll be based on some other way of demonstrated capability. So like if you want to hire a film person, you just go, okay, I want to go to your YouTube site. It's like, okay, you can do this. Or it'll be based on social network verification. Like, okay, I worked with Jesse as a game designer, and he did a really good job. And so
Okay.
you get to that
So,
sort of thing.
so you think social network verification will be part of it. Part of it will be professional societies.
I think it's just that the role of what a university actually is, the idea that you went there to gain knowledge that you couldn't gain elsewhere, that you had to go there in order to access the particular types of learning that you wanted, the actual information that was contained in them.
Right.
That's going to go away. And then
Right.
as that dissolves, and as the cost of if the cost of college keeps rising faster than inflation,
Well-
it will become unaffordable.
Well, right, but the thing that's been happening is, even though the cost of college has been rising
faster than inflation.
faster than inflation,
Consistently.
consistently, the number of people going to college this year has continued to increase with it.
Because there's been more and more subsidizing, and there's also been more and more people going to community colleges at lower rates.
So
Right? So they're staying home, they're going online because they're trying to absorb those costs
yeah.
in that regard. So as those things happen, in some ways you could argue that eventually it's going to devalue the it's not going to necessarily but it's going to commoditize it. And then once it's commoditized, it will then just basically break apart. It doesn't mean that colleges necessarily go away. They just may become something radically different. It's not clear to me as a parent who's going to pay ridiculous sums of money, having met lots of people who can now self-service themselves in terms of acquiring key next generation skills, that necessarily college is going to provide those skills any better than literally taking that money and using it in other inventive ways.
Well, what if the notion is rather that colleges find it necessary to up their game, and they're forced to confront the notion of what can we do better than someone learning online at home can do, and that maybe they go into a new echelon of...
The question will be whether or not those entities can move fast. You know better than I whether they can. I think what you've seen some of them do, like with what they've done with ETC, is it's been splinter groups within the colleges, pushing out, getting funding, and almost operating, coexisting with the school in some, more nimble manner. But I look at the rising cost of college. I look at the fact that I didn't finish college for a variety of reasons, and I love college. I love the incubation of it. But the fact of the matter is, from a pure knowledge gaining standpoint, they're becoming less and less relevant. Especially, it's and so how do you change that whole value proposition? So you think of graduate school, and the value proposition of graduate school right now is actually really, really high.
Yeah.
And in most of the top graduate schools, what you hear are two things, right? We will give you a network, which is what most top MBA schools offer. You will get hired out of here.
Yep.
Because of our branding. And then to some degree on technical skills, it's about the fact that you get to apprentice with people who are clearly qualified.
Right.
But what happens if that whole model breaks apart? It's entirely possible that you could have people who set up shop and say, I am a world-class computer programmer, and I used to be a professor. And now you can come and study with me for half the price of going to CMU. And everybody, and I can get, I'll take 10 students a year, and I can get you all jobs. It's like when, we're getting out of the value proposition of what you're gaining from at least the 4-year level is, I think, disintegrating.
So let's see, just to try and put a quantity on this.
The more technical you get, the less it does, because there's just certain things.
No, I follow that, but it almost sounds like, so we're saying if we have a certain number of people who are attending 4-year colleges today, you're saying it'd be fewer people by 15 years from now.
I think it's a bubble, right? Like it's an actual bubble.
Would you be willing to say, like, do you think it'll be half the number of people will be attending 4-year colleges in 2026 as compared to now?
That's probably, I'll say it just for the sake of putting it off.
You think it might be less, or?
No, I'll say half is just a good bold prediction.
Okay.
I think this is where I'm thinking is that if these cracks really turn into fissures, it will be like a cliff.
Yeah.
It will be and the fissure it will represent is, and it won't be necessarily the Phoenix.edus and the DeVries.
Yeah.
But it will be to the point that there will be an online offering from a variety of reputable schools that basically become like, so everybody can go to Penn State, or everybody can go to, and it will become sort of just the mass mixture.
Okay.
But the thing is that here's the part that actually I think becomes more interesting about it, which does get back to the technical side. If all of a sudden you have all these incredible tools, 3D printers, open source software, YouTube, networks to reach out to people, and actually short circuit the whole idea that you're going to learn something, you're going to just spend those 40 years doing something. That's going to be the issue. And if you get this sort of like, I don't particularly agree with their politics, but you look at like guys like Thiel and Michael Robertson, who are literally saying you could take that money, you could put it in your 401k. If you took the cost of a major Ivy League education and you took all that money and instead you said we're going to put it in a 401k.
Yeah.
I think you can plot this eventually. I don't think it's there yet. They claim it is, but you could eventually get to the point where your earnings potential over the lifetime of that money sitting in a well-managed account actually is going to get really, really close to being equal.
Right.
And at what point do people make rationalized decisions? Because the reverse decision of that is the following: is when people say, "Oh well, but look at the lifetime earning of an engineer." You're not going to go to school, you're not going to become an engineer. No. Nobody said they weren't going to become an engineer. They just said they weren't going to go to school to get an engineering degree, which may stunt some of their growth. But it doesn't mean they're going to go to be packing bags in supermarkets.
Yeah.
Instead means they're going to be like, I'm going to download code off the internet, I'm going to do
there's the middle road, which is like I'm going to go to a school with a good reputation that has a more valued price.
Yeah, and that's already starting to happen.
Yeah.
And that's why what's interesting is if you look at enrollments going up, that's true. But if you look at the number of foreign enrollments students, that's gone up tremendously as well.
How do you see that? Did I do that?
What's that?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, it's all right. It's all right. No, I think it just fell. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Okay. Well, Ben, I think that's clear.
This is a problem that I've been concerned about in the sense that when I sit in all these future of education conferences, when I sit at this, when I look at the future of the world in general, I worry that generalized school, the general college is just not keeping up.
Yeah. No,
And then the only thing they are keeping up is the cost. And the only reason they're able to keep the cost up is because they've been able to bring in outside demand.
Yeah.
At some point, that sounds like a bubble to me.
Yeah.
That bursts. And
Okay.
so I think that'll happen.
Thank you.
Okay.